How many of you have been feeling this overwhelming sense of just chaos and confusion and people getting in your face, talking crazy, going on social media, unfollowing people, right? A lot of people are just going through it, and it's as if they've just gotten tired of people, right? How many of you have been doing that? Okay, you're going through your social media feed and you're like delete, block, delete, block, delete. This is a common occurrence among a lot of people right now. And I want to spend time with you today to have you all come into this live and let's have a conversation about what's really going on below the surface. And I feel very honored, actually. Sounds crazy, but I feel honored to be alive today in the midst of this chaos, because this is what I've been preparing to do my entire life. And I will be the first one to tell you, that I was ready to cut everybody off when someone upset me. And I have learned over time what is at the root of that. There's more for that conversation, but also, like, what is it? Why can't I? What is the tension between us? Because at the end of the day, by the time I get done with this live, I'm going to venture to say that we all want the same things. We all want the same things, but we don't have the patience, the inner ability to be able to work through problems. And our passion and our desire gets mixed up with our own inability to be able to see, people, humanity. And so that's why I want to come to you today. And I want to talk to you about the acronym that I've created. It's called PASSION. And this is passion, which is, and I'm going to actually put this in as a caption. I'm going to add the passion um, is an acronym that I've created, and it's something I believe in. And passion is stands for to pause, assess, get some space, and then speak, right? And passion is the PASS, pause, assess, get some space, and then speak, so that you can gain insight, become open, and gain knowledge. Now, we're going to break all that down. But first things first, I want to ask you, how many of you have been doing what I was just saying at the beginning of the live? How many of you have been cutting people off? How many of you have started to categorize people? You know them, they, and then you fill in the blank. These categories of people, right? Whether they are Black, white, immigrants, people with disabilities, people that have certain types of health conditions, the othering that we do, and we spend more time classifying certain types of people, having the inability to be able to relate to you. How many of you do that? I mean, if you don't, then I think that you lying. I think that you might be and perhaps you've gotten enlightened. Perhaps you've gotten to another level, which is the level I want to talk about. But I got to get to the real level of, a lot of where people are. That they are in a space where they just cannot really connect with people. And so I'm going to keep passion here on the screen. And I want to talk to you and have a real conversation about where I've been in my life. So, as I'm married to a white man, and I look Black. I identify as a Black woman, an African American woman. And I have a lot of trauma in my past. I've had a lot of what I would call reasons for me wanting to work on justice and advocacy and democracy and freedom. I have been othered a lot. And even in the category of that you see me as a Black woman, I've been othered even in that category. And so, what I have been on pursuit with is trying to, one, heal from this, I would call it pulling away of my power. When we spend more time othering people, our power diminishes. And I didn't know that right away. I just know that I was upset, I was angry, and I was frustrated that people were not treating me, my family, and everyone fairly. And I felt like it was my job, by getting a license to practice law, to be the person to force someone to listen to me, to hear me. But what I didn't want to do was I didn't want to make people feel the way I felt when I was being othered. In other words, I was bullied. I was, people would smile in my face and do things behind my back. And the only reason why I knew that because other people would tell me that. And I would feel when I would go into categories or go into spaces that, were built on either like Black women or white men or, all white women, I would have my biases and I would have my ideas about the stereotypes that those groups have. And I would see, do I fit in that? And the privilege, let me just get on, and I know I'm going deep, and then I'm going to come back to the passion part. But listen, you have to understand the privilege that you have within those groups, right? There's a feeling of belonging and inclusion, and you feel good being in those groups because you look like them, you think like these people, you walk like these people, you talk like these people, and it feels good. The issue becomes when that group then believes that they are the dominant person. They believe that they are the better than, right? Nothing wrong with being amazing at and good, loving who you are. But when you start othering people and you start saying they over there, they're not like us because, and I know I'm touching on some things because we just heard this music on the halftime show, they not like us and they not like us. Yes, that's true. They're not like us, but that doesn't mean that we are better than them. And it's just a fine line, right? Because we are taught to make us, like in winning a game and, that you're superior. And this is the fine line that we get into when we are like, you know, feeling like you don't understand me. And so therefore you can't be with around me. And over the past, I would say a lot of years since 2020, we've really been building up even more of that visually. It's been happening forever. It's been happening forever. We've just seen it more and more that I'm going to be about self-preservation. And I'm going to cut you off because I'm not even going to spend time even diving into the conversation. Well, the problem is that you got to work with these people. Okay. The problem is you got to live with these people. The problem is that you just can't create an island of yourself, right? Because that doesn't work. So what we have to do is we have to understand how to get into conversation. We have to be brave enough to walk into situations to come to a resolve. And what I am proposing to you today is that you have to have passion. You have to have a passion within you, a desire to want to. For those of you who have no desire, you have no passion to do this, keep it stepping, right? Because this is for the people who are about change, who are about freedom, who are about democracy. These are the people who want to shift social transformation. I have come to this realization that a lot of people think that we can just cut people off at the knees because we've been seeing that happening with people who have put themselves into leadership positions. We think, oh, okay, well, they're out there doing that, then we should do that too. That's called ignorance. That's not intelligence. It might be clever for you to be able to do that, but that's not intelligence. That doesn't get you anywhere. That gets you seen and like, oh, look at me. I just did this. But that doesn't get us to the ultimate goal. What I talk about when it comes to passion is really understanding what it means to actually create a shift, a quantitative shift, an evolution of change in social transformation, right? If you know anything about me, I'm all about the long haul. I'm all about making certain that what I'm doing has substance, has purpose, and there's power behind it. Not some just ironic kind of thing that just kind of happens and, oh, wow, look, or the flashy stuff. What we are all about is really making social transformation. And I am speaking to you if that is what you are. And a lot of time I'm speaking to my corporate women who I understand who've been trying to close gender equity gaps. I'm speaking to you too. And I know that you know how to get stuff done because you do it on your job. And what I want you to do is I want you to take this passion that I'm talking about, and I want you to utilize this for people you have considered others, the othering. And I want us to be able to find ways to get into conversation. So, this passion. The reason why I created this passion acronym was because I was at a graduation party. And at this graduation party, this woman, it was my son's graduation party, and I happened to be the only other person there, the only woman of color, Black woman at this graduation party with a whole bunch of kids. It's predominantly white, white people at this party, and of course my husband and my family, and my husband's white. And this person said to me, who I thought was a friend, said to me, she introduced me to her parents as her Black friend. She later said that it was her, she said it was my, my Black sis. um Regardless, that made me feel othered. And I sat down at this graduation party and I just could not take it. I was so upset. I was so angry. And I was ready to leave the graduation party. We did leave the graduation party, and I was just so upset and mad because I had promised myself when I was growing up, I would never be in situations where I felt like I was the only one or the other. That's just, as I said at the beginning of this live, that's impossible unless you plan on sitting in a rot in a corner by yourself. So I get away from that. And it just made me think like I have been dealing with that my whole life. And this person that said what she said, I was like, do I want to take the energy and effort to understand what that was about? Like, why did she say that? Why did she do that? And I really had to make a decision because this is what I talk about. This is the work I do, helping people get through difficult conversations. So I needed to talk to her about this. So I did. I set up a time, I had a conversation with her, and I realized I had to do some things inside of me to help me sit down, listen to her, have the conversation, and find myself in a space where I was not full on ready to cut people off. Because I believe that you all are ready to cut people off. You don't want to take the time to actually sit down, have the conversation, because you have in your mind all these preconceived notions and ideas. Am I right or am I right? I know I'm right because I know you're like me, and these are the things that you think about, right? So I did. I sat down and had the conversation, but I realized I had to prepare myself to go into the conversation. So what we're going to be going through right now, and this is a masterclass on passion, right? Because I am a passionate person. I am a passionate person. I love to really get in and I helping people and talking about things and getting into deep conversations. And I realized my passion when she said what she said fell flat. I just had no energy to be able to talk about anything. So today, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about where passion comes from, how you can use passion, how you can use it in your workplace, how you can use it with your boss. You can use this with your people you just don't agree with, right? The others, right? And so, again, this is for, again, if you've listened to the video thus far, it means that we are friends. Okay. That means that you and I, we can get some things done, right? Because we have got to get to this level. So I'm going to break this down for you, put on my handy dandy glasses, and I am in a hotel room that is a bed. But if you're paying attention to that, that means you're not really paying attention to what I'm saying. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull up my, we have weekly content that I want you all to get. I want you to get this weekly content because it's going to help you get into this ability to be able to make social change, work on democracy, be able to do things on your job, change social constructs, and so forth. So, because this is not for the faint of heart. So, I want to share this from the content that we published today, and it is passion. So, let's look at the word passion because I love to look at the word because words have meaning. Passion comes from the Latin word P.A.S.S.I.O. P.A.S.S.I.O. So passion comes from the Latin word, and I'm going to type this in here, word passio, which means, okay, suffer or endure. Okay, so let me put that in here. That passion comes from the Latin word passio, which means to suffer or endure. It's not about a fleeting excitement, right? So passion, this is not like, woo. This is to get in here and to endure. It's to get into like a really good workout, right? And you are feeling like I've got to get into this space and I'm going to work on something. Passion calls for action. It asks you to dig deep, take control of your emotions, and stay the course, even when the road gets rough. Losing some folks, huh? Right? Because this is how we make social transformation. So the passion, when conflict arises, I'm going to actually link in our path to power, purpose, and connection, because I would love for you all to be able to have this as a visual on how you're planning on to have power, how you're going to maintain your purpose, and how you're going to help to connect with people, because all three of those things, power, purpose, and connection, is exactly what we want to have. Is exactly what we want to have. So what I want to start off with is to pause. The P, the first thing in passion, is you've got to get into a space where you can pause. You've got to know, first of all, and I need to put this in here, what the F is going on inside of you. You got to know when you are, and I'm going to put this in here and see which one you are. All right. So you got to know what the F is going on inside of you. So are you Are you a person that's, I got flight, flight. It's flight. I need to edit that. Flight, freeze, fawn. I'm going to put that and save that and show it. All right. Are you a fighter? Are you a fawner, which is a people pleaser? Are you a freezer? I did it again. Fight, flight. All right. All right. You got to love these lives. Fight, fawn, freeze, or flight, meaning like when someone upsets you, are you a fighter? Are you a fawner? Are you a freezer? Are you a person who runs away? A fawner is a people pleaser. So you have to know, like, when someone upsets me, like right when she said that to me, right when that woman said what she said to me at the graduation party, you know what the first thing I wanted to do was? I wanted to say something. But I didn't, because I've been working on, getting myself to come out of that situation. But what was the second thing I wanted to do? Get the heck out, right? Flight. That's been the fight, flight response type of person that I've been. And I really realize a lot of us don't understand when we're in that type of zone, right? Which is the F zone. So that's the first thing, really. And then when you know you're in that F zone, then I'm going to encourage you to do the first P in passion, which is the P in passion is to pause. And I'm going to say that you want to pause at least 90 seconds. So I'm going to pause, and then I want you to pause 90 seconds. So that way, that's what the studies say, that you need to be able to pause at least 90 seconds to get yourself off, out of that like fight or flight zone, and into a more, your mind can be able to absorb and know how to move forward. Because at that point, this is when a lot of people react. They say things that they don't mean to say. They start crying or breaking down, or they start saying things like, why did you say that? Or they, run away, and people are like, what happened? Right. It's really important for you to be able to pause 90 seconds. I want to give you a book for you to consider. And this book that I want you to consider is Switch On Your Brain. And the Switch On Your Brain book that I really believe is critical is the doctor, and I'm going to, Dr. Caroline Leaf. She does such a great job of explaining what happens to the brain and the body when it's in that flight or fight response. Most neuroscientists, which she is, will explain to you that you don't have control of yourself at all during that time period. So it's important for you to pause. So pausing is something that I would really, really, and let's take an example. Like if you're in a meeting, right? Someone says something to you and you find yourself in this space, then I want you to give yourself that 90 seconds, right? And then the next thing I want you to do is I want you to find yourself asking yourself some questions, right? And I call it to assess. And I'm going to put this on screen here. I love this because I feel like I'm teaching this class to you guys. Assess. So assess says, while you're pulling yourself out of this fight or flight response, you're starting to go, okay, now why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking this way? Oh, here it goes again. I think that this, like I've made her, and let's talk to go to the graduation party incident. I said, oh, this is another white woman saying something to me. And it was reminding me of an incident that happened when I was a kid, right? I put myself right back into that category. And And I was starting to realize because of course I was like, why would she say that? What is she saying that for? Why did she make me feel that way in that particular experience? But the assessments that I really want you to be able to do is, you know, I need to be able to come down from this situation. How can I um, realize I'm safe, right? And these are the things I want you to do as you're kind of in this space, because when you're coming down out of the fight or flight response, you'll be able to have more of this better dialogue inside your head. The assess piece is critical because that will allow you to move out of often not a good situation. Now, you might say, after you get through asking yourself these questions, is this true? Is what she's saying true? Is this me taking it personal? Am I making an assumption? How am I assessing myself here? And the more you do this, the better you get at it. But you might say, after you get done with the assess in your mind, you might say, you might need some space. And in this particular instance, I would tell the other person, let's table this discussion. Can we, or talk later? Okay. And I think that this is such a positive thing to do, because giving yourself space and pulling yourself out of the situation is steeped in emotional intelligence, right? I really don't believe a lot of people know how to strategically move them out of situations where they're not in a line of fire and they can think critically. Space allows you time to come up with a deeper understanding of your own emotions, and for you to be able to learn how to say what it is you need to say next. Now, space might give you time to talk to a mentor, talk to a trusted advisor, get into conversation with a sponsor of yours on your job, or space just allows you to be able to meditate, to be able to pray over the situation, and to allow yourself to read something that's going to get you into a place where you can eventually have a conversation. Space is critical. Now, I'm just going to tell you, I don't want you to pull away from a situation. Never tell anybody that you're pulling away. Like, often when you're in these meetings and you're in conversations with people, you just walking away and not saying anything, that just leaves the other person hanging. I believe the emotional intelligence and the more respectful thing to do is to say, I just need some time to be able to think this through. I have found in my relationship with my husband over 27 years of marriage, this space is so good. It's so needed. And when you get space from this situation, you are able to see, can I be without this person? What do I need? And most of you can't be without the people that you are having these conversations with. And sometimes, of course, you can, but really, I want you to test your own heart here and see how you are going to have the courage to close the the infraction. Does that make sense? Space. Because when you get the space, and after you have the space, then I want you to speak. And that's the second S in in the passion acronym, is to speak, right? So, and when I say speak, I mean by, like, either you're going to have a verbal, written, or a verbal or a written conversation. And I personally like to go face to face if possible. You might need to take someone with you. You might need to have someone come with you to speak, and that's fine too. But I really do believe that speaking is critical. See, here's the thing. A lot of people will just not want to speak, right? And they just don't want to close the situation. Or they speak and it's not genuine. It's not filled with integrity. And they don't have the right mindset to getting to the end result. And that's why it's taking time to pause, get the assessments, get some space, and then speaking is critical, right? So that is PASS, PASS, right? And PASS is the first four letters in this acronym. So I love to say pass on blurting out your first response. Pass on taking things personal. And the list goes on. What else do you need to pass on? Pass on taking things personal, right? Pass on canceling everyone that you don't agree with. Pass on assuming that, oh, it's just those other people, those white girls, or, those black girls, or, those immigrants, or, those white men. We do this constantly. And so when you pass, you pause, assess, get some space, and then speak. The courageous thing to do is pass. The courageous thing to do is to put this into practice. And I'm just going to tell you that when you pass on these kinds of things, you like yourself more. Not only do you like yourself more, and you get the momentum to see that what you're doing is transformational, right? Because when you pass, you gain energy, right? You gain energy, and that is ion, right? When you pass, you gain energy, which is the ion, and that is the last half of passion, which is to ion is energy, right? Because often when we get deflated from people, it chips away at our ability to have this magnetism, this ability to do our great work. So I want you to be able to gain this ion. So the first I is the I in passion is insight. And what does insight do is it begs curiosity. It begs for you to have curiosity. I don't know if I can spell that right. So insight allows you to have curiosity because insight goes, I guess I never thought about it that way. Ooh, I mean, how courageous is it for you to be able to say that? Wow, I never thought about it that way. Because most people aren't courageous enough to be able to lower their pride to be able to say, I never thought about it that way. Oh, I can see why you thought about it that way. I can understand why you may have said that, because when you are doing this, you have to understand. Remember, the Latin word for passion is to suffer and endure. To get to the point of getting space and having speak and then being insightful is for you to be able to take your emotions and you're be able to take all this in and be able to endure the conversation and literally listen, understand, hear what another person has to say. That's how you do it. I know that this is not something that's going to be popular, but this is how we get to resolution, because once you become more insightful, then you become more open. You can take in other things that you were not able to take in before, right? To be open to a situation, to hearing, to listening, to feeling, it just requires a deeper level of consciousness. It requires, oops, let me go back here. It requires a deeper level of enlightenment. And this is the reason why this road is few, because a lot of people are quick fixes. They're not really studying themselves. They're not really understanding how their passion and emotion is. They might say, oh, my culture doesn't say that I'm quick to do this, I'm quick to do that, or I'm slow to do that. This is not what we do. You've just bought into a human made culture and a particular way in which you live. That doesn't mean that that's enlightened. That doesn't mean that that's intelligent. It's just the way that your culture is, right? It's just the way that you were brought up, or it's just the way that your community is. That doesn't mean that that is the best way. What is the best way is for you to be able to understand how to become an enlightened human being. An enlightened human being is open. We're conscious. We stay in the present moment, and we listen, and we hear, and we're able to love. That is an enlightened human being. Because when you become more open, you're able to take in things you've never been able to take in before because of your level of consciousness. After you become open, you gain more knowledge. Now, the K is silent, okay? I'm going to put this in here. Willingness to learn, right? I feel that a lot of people just are not willing to learn. We're not willing to take on the beautiful opportunity to learn about other people, to learn about other things. And some would say, well, why do I have to learn? Well, why wouldn't you want to learn? Passion is something that I feel a lot of us need today. We all need to know what it's like to be able to get our body, our mind, our spirit to a level of practice where we're able to work through difficult circumstances, to be able to understand people at a different level, to understand that we are not the only ones because of our group, because of our category, that we are superior than other people, that we can get into dialogue and conversation and understand and to learn about how we can become a better people. Like I said at the beginning of this live, and I know we're 37 minutes in, this is the conversation of today. This is what we do in the Rise with Diana community. This is how we elevate consciousness in our community. I am completely and 100% convinced that what we do with our Rise Advocates Academy, the Rise Advocates, and the what way we walk and what we do is going to be something that everyone needs across the world, across the world. So I want to ask you, of this conversation, where do you see you need to start working on? What do you need to begin to do? There's a lot here. We could say, do you need to pause more? Are you the type of person who needs to get to a space where you can start asking yourself some questions? Do you need to create intentional space, boundaries, margin in your life? Do you need to speak to somebody? Right? Because I would say if you're not passing on these things, PASS, you're not very insightful. You're not very open. And you're not a person who's reading and learning. And I know that the corporate women that I work with, these women, you want to learn. You want to grow. You believe there's something more in your life. You believe there's something more about your life that you're supposed to be doing. And this is where we begin. Passion. And this is just one aspect of what we teach in our work, but it is foundational to our path of power, purpose, and connection. Now, I know that I've given you quite a bit today, and we had to be on here for quite a bit. I had to type on all these things, but this is what we do. I have the Rise with Diana podcast that you can listen to that goes into even deeper detail. I would say that the Rise with Diana podcast is a masterclass in and of itself for you to be able to learn more about how you can create social transformation just on your job. Corporate women, we want to talk about closing gender equity gaps and standing up and speaking our truth and doing all these things. These are all the flags that we wave at all these conferences, and we have these dialogues, we have these symposiums, and we do all these fancy things, and we look good when we're saying it. But when it comes down to it, what are you doing to practice it? Can you look in the mirror and say that you have actually done this work and had these difficult conversations, right? Because we're not about show and flash in the pan. As I said, passio, suffer and endure. Do the hard work. Be the person. Be the change. Go out there. You're not popular. Not being all fancy all the time. Well, you can be fancy and doing the passion work, but I'm just saying we're spending too much time trying to look a certain way and not be it. If this is something you're like, she's speaking to me. This Diana Patton, who the heck is she? Where does she come from? We need to connect. Yeah, we need to connect, and we need to be able to have a conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link in the opportunity to book a time with me. And I would love for you to be able to connect with me. I also encourage you to pick up my book, Inspiration in My Shoes, so you can learn more of my story, like my background story of this. And I'm also going to give you a link for you to get on our weekly content, because you need to be reading every single week. You need to be getting into content that is going to help you get to the next level. And that's what we're all about here in this community. Sound good? All right. Well, if you've been on here this long, that means we definitely need to connect. All right, my friend. All right, my sis. I look forward to connecting with you. And again, 3 things: Rise with Diana podcast, book a call with me, and let's be able to talk with you. Because when you book the call with me, you'll be able to fill out a form and be able to get more detail so I can help you better when we talk. The last thing I would do is just, again, get on our weekly content schedule. All right. Talk to you soon. Have a great